This video is the next one in the Historic Ordnance series. I'm going to be covering a Soviet-era anti-tank grenade that has been used to great effect by guerrilla forces around the world, especially in the Middle East. This is the RKG-3 series anti-tank grenade. Adopted by the Soviet Army in 1950, remained in frontline service up into the 1970s, when it was replaced with the RKG-3 disposable light anti-tank weapon, the Soviets' version or one of their versions of the M72 Law Rocket series. Now, there's three main models that were adopted or employed: the RKG-3, the RKG-3M, which came about around 1951-52, and the RKG-3EM, Echo Mike, which I think I came across a reference that said that came about around in the mid-60s. These are not time-delayed grenades like a standard hand grenade. These are impact fused, meaning they have to hit the target to go off. And they're designed to go off only if they hit the target a certain way, and its construction is meant to make sure that that happens. Now, some of the basic details I have on it. The RKG-3 weighed 2 1/3 pounds. The final grenade in the series, the RKG-3EM, was 3 3/4 pounds. The filler of the shaped charge warhead, which is located here in this picture on the grenade, is 1.25 pounds of TNT. Overall length of the grenade was a little over 14 inches at 14.17, and the diameter of the warhead was approximately 2.75 inches. Now, its capabilities for penetration on the RKG-3 was around 125 to up to 170 millimeters of armor. Obviously, that varied on the type of the armor on the vehicle, how well it was made. That's why there's such a large range. On the 3M model, could penetrate up to 220 millimeters of armor. On the 3EM model, up to 240 millimeters of armor. The danger area for these grenades for the person employing it was 50 meters. Fragmentation danger area, where you were going to get hit by frag, was 20 meters. The throwing range for one of these grenades, because of its big, bulky, hefty existence, is 15 to 20 meters. There are notes that state that this grenade must only be used or employed from behind cover or from a fighting position, and that as soon as the person throws it, they are supposed to immediately return to cover, return to that fighting position, because you are within the range of catching shrapnel of this going off. Now, as I said, this is impact fused. It is designed to go off only one certain way, just like with a high explosive anti-tank rocket, a heat rocket. Now, some of the general components on this: you had the handle, which has a pin that you can see here. There's a safety lever and cap on the back of the handle. Close in a little better here for you, if I can get it to focus. Inside the handle here is a spring-loaded parachute, which needs to deploy to get the fuse to start working. There is a detonator which is placed in here. You have the warhead, which sits inside a steel casing or canister. Copper cone. And then down here, kind of a tin or sheet metal standoff, which is enclosed. Down here on this one, you can kind of see the parachute after it has sprung out of the back of the grenade. And down here, if my camera focus, which it doesn't want to, you can see the pin, and that's the safety lever there, which holds on the cap on the back here containing the spring-loaded parachute. Now, the instructions that I came across for this, and this is from a translated East German grenade, which had the instructions imprinted on the side of the warhead. First, insert the booster. So, depending how they are in the crate, I do not know if this is the actual issue crate. Can't find any info on that. You would unscrew the handle from the warhead. Insert the booster. Then screw the handle back on. It's now armed and ready to go. Get into your fighting position. When you need to employ it, pull the pin. It says to throw grenade with force. This is an impact fuse. And take cover immediately. Now what happens? The fuse on this is essentially 4-stage. The first stage, you remove the safety pin. Second stage, the safety lever will pop back and then off, shooting off the end here. And then the parachute will spring load out. As the parachute goes out, it pulls a weight, spring-loaded striker, back, holding it in position. That's the third stage. Fourth stage is when it actually impacts the target. Then that weight with the firing pin goes flying forward, striking the primer, setting off the booster, which sets off the warhead. It ignites, turning this copper cone, molten, into a slug, travels the distance. This is the optimal distance to the target for penetration. Travels that distance, hits the end of the armor. The explosive heats the armor, pushes that copper slug through the armor. Now, the Soviets trained their people when they employ these, pulled a pin, and then they wanted to high angle arc it onto the target to make sure that it landed flat against the armor to get the optimum effect. I've seen footage of them practicing throwing overhand. I've also seen footage of them practicing throwing underhand. I've come across references of them actually in the 1960s, 1970s is my guess because of the age of the manual, where they would string a rope at a certain height and they were taught they had to throw the grenade up and over that height so that the parachute would deploy and you would get the good coming straight down right on top of the roof of your target. I've seen footage of them taking them, underhanding them, or even overhanding them into the front of a BMP to try to skid it along the armor, to try to get it to hit right at the base of the turret, hopefully flat, which would then give enough force to set off the grenade. Now, I have been, when I got the briefing on these grenades in 2006, that's when they made the appearance in Iraq, they were causing a lot of casualties. So safety message and intel message went across the entire U.S. military, especially for engineers, to be on the lookout for these. One of the things they told us, the fuses on these, as you can see, are extremely touchy. You can end up with hang fires on these easily, and it does not take much to disturb one of these as a dud, and it can go off. Now, how the Iraqi insurgents employed these, they opened them up, removed the parachutes, pulled them back, basically presetting the weight in here. And then when U.S. Humvees would drive by, they would literally take them and whip them right at the front of the Humvee, right at the windows on the sides. They wanted to skid them right across the top of the hood, so this section would impact the windshield. And the glass did not hold up to that warhead at all. A lot of guys were killed. A lot of guys were seriously injured. Another thing they would do was high arc them over the top of a wall as a vehicle went past, try to get it up on top of the roof. Another thing I've come across, or we were told about, was them basically waiting on the second floor of a building or up on the roof of a building. And then when the American convoy or coalition convoy would come by, they would try to toss them down, making sure that they would land business end facing right on top of the roof of the target, detonate, sending the force inside. Now, obviously, doctrinally, these are considered obsolete, so they're not frontline service anymore. But they are still useful against lighter armored vehicles, such as patrol vehicles, MRAPs, infantry fighting vehicles, as long as it doesn't have a ton of additional add-on armor, and armored personnel carriers. It is not sufficient to take out a modern-made battle tank and hasn't been for decades. They're still out there, still effective, and you should be aware of them. Your chances of coming across one outside of time of war or a raw situation, slim to none. Training aid examples of these, if you look them up online, are anywhere from $250 to well over $1,000 a piece. Hence why I am showing you on a picture and not with a training aid. I do not know how many are inside a crate when they're issued. I do not know if it is 3 like this, or is it 6, or how many are issued inside a supply crate. I do not know. Now, for all my engineer brothers and the Patriot and militia movements, always remember essayons.